Hello and hi guys, hi there, how are all of you? I hope you all are fine. Well, my name is Yusuf and I'm back on Yusuf Reacts. Well guys, today I'm back again with a very interesting movie review for you people. Well, the movie that I'm going to be talking about is going to be something that is extremely exciting. I would say at the same time it is something that has a lot to offer. If we talk about it and if we talk about science fiction movies, there are a lot of things that we guys eventually come across. Now this movie basically is something that is also targeting an element of science fiction that eventually tends to happen, but this time we have a very nice story that is knit along with that. Over here, the movie that we are going to be talking about today is going to be known as The Age of Adaline. Now, from the title we guys see The Age and Adaline. Basically this movie is a story of a lady named as Adaline. Now eventually we come across and we see what eventually tends to happen as far as this movie is concerned. If we talk about all the particular things that are related to this particular movie, there is so much to offer. The things that are there is what? The first thing that I like to talk about as far as this movie is concerned is this thing up. Basically we come across a lady known as Adaline. Now she's someone who belongs to the era of 1907, and in simple words if I talk about it, she's a woman from the 20th century. Now if I talk about this particular thing, a woman from the 20th century, now you guys would be wondering what is the thing that makes it quite interesting. The thing that makes it interesting is this thing of that she's a woman who comes from that particular time and eventually she falls in love with a particular guy and eventually both of them get married. They have a daughter, but unfortunately after some time we come to know that her husband, who was basically an engineer, he eventually passed away in a particular accident that took place. Now the thing that tends to happen is this. Now she's someone who is left over with her daughter, and we see that like one stormy night she's traveling on her car and eventually she comes across an accident that takes place. Because of that particular accident she falls into the water and she's almost dead. But eventually the thing which tends to happen is what? The thing which tends to happen is this thing up, that there is a particular piece of lightning that strikes, and that lightning strikes, and because of the particular lightning that eventually tends to take place, it straight away hits where Adaline was present. She eventually, because of the fact she had passed away, she was dead, but the current or that energy that was required, she gets it and eventually she wakes up. Now eventually this is nothing less than a miracle that eventually tends to happen, and there's no one who can eventually explain it. Even Adaline has no idea and no clue to how she is alive. Now the thing which tends to happen is what? The thing which tends to happen is this, that from that time onwards there is a new thing that eventually pops up. The new thing that eventually pops up is this thing up, that now Adaline is immune to age. Means she's never gonna be aging. The age that she's present in is she's gonna be stuck in that particular age, and that is what eventually tends to happen. We see Adaline, like there are years which tend to pass on, but there is not even a single change that tends to occur. Now this is something that eventually becomes a huge cause of concern, and Adaline is now even worried because of the fact that she does not age and she's at the same age which she was at the time of the accident, and she's going to be at that particular time. Now the thing which tends to happen is this, that eventually Adaline has to switch places, but this time there is one thing that tends to happen is this, that the FBI are against her. They eventually come to know that there's a lady who eventually tends to change her name, IID, and moves on. So FBI tend to follow her up. They are obviously going to be taking her for experimentation, figuring out that what is the thing that is wrong with her. Eventually she tends to escape, and from that particular time onwards she sets a goal that she's not going to be staying at one particular place for a certain time period of 8 months, and then she'll eventually go away. And that is how the things eventually move on. Now she has a life. Her life, the thing is this, that like her daughter who was there, she even has not turned to become a grandmother, and Adaline is still of the same age that she was. Now she, eventually moves on and goes on from here and there, and that's how things eventually go along. But the thing that is there is what? She is alone. She wants love, but she always pushes away love because of the fact that she cannot afford it, and that is what the whole thing is. Now the most interesting thing that tends to happen is this, that Adaline falls in love. And when Adaline falls in love, now this is the thing that tends to make it even more interesting. She falls in love, and she falls in love with a guy which she eventually does not want to date out, but eventually with the passage of time, when she discusses it with her daughter and she tells her about all that particular thing up, she convinces her that she should do that. And eventually when she does that, that is when the whole things eventually tend to fold off. And Adaline eventually accepts this thing up and she goes for it. And the guy who she gets in love with is a very nice, rich kind of a guy, and that is someone who really knows how to take care of Adaline. He really knows how to cater her mood swings and so on like that. So all in all, if we talk about it, things eventually now are going as planned, and things are going as she wanted him to go along, and things are going on in a really good manner. So Adaline is, at the same time, if I talk about it, she's someone who's really happy, excited, and really want to go along with life. Now the thing which tends to happen is this, that the guy who she falls in love with, it's the 40th anniversary of his parents that's tend to come in. Now because of that 40th anniversary, he invites Adaline to be his girlfriend, and he wants to take her along, and he wants her to meet his parents. Now there's one thing that we see about his parents, that we see this thing out, that his parents, especially his father, is someone who really feels this thing up, that like this is a girl who has studied a bit about my boy. She knows that he's quite rich enough. That is the reason why she has got him engaged in a sort of love relationship, so that she could take away the money and stuff like that. So he thinks like that. But eventually when Adaline moves on and he comes over there, we come to know that Adaline has obviously now changed her name to Jenny, because as I told you guys before, she eventually changes her name. So the thing which tends to happen is that her father was the one who was the most closest one who could get close to Adaline during his young age, and he was the one who eventually was about to propose Adaline, but Adaline fled away. When his father sees Adaline, he has the same word, Adaline, and then Adaline, because she was pretending to be as Jenny, she tells him, no, I'm not Jenny, that was my mother. But he eventually is so stunned to see that this is the same lady that he eventually fell in love with. All the particular things that his father eventually had with Adaline, they just come back. It's a flashback that comes in his mind. That flashback is something that he really cannot come over. And this is the whole thing that eventually goes, that he has seen Adaline and he's in a shock. That shock is something that really has got him. It has struck him, and it has struck him so bad that he does not know how to react to it. And this thing is something that really is the most intriguing part over here. Now because of the fact he does not know how to react, he eventually is wondering what basically is this thing, and how is this thing eventually possible. All those memories come back into it, and he tends to talk about it on the table when they sit down. She talks about Adaline, and he discusses how she was, what kind of a lady she was, and all the particular things that were there. His wife, she eventually tends to get a bit insecure and a bit jealous on how his husband has reacted, because of the fact he's a guy who never has reacted like this before in his life. Now seeing him do it for the first time is something that was a bit sort of confusing thing, and at the same time it was a bit sort of an intriguing thing that eventually tend to happen. Now the thing that we see is what? Now the thing that we see is this thing up, that Adaline at the same time is on a really big struggle that eventually is going on. She does not know, and she's unable to decide, and she's unable to realize that how things have eventually unfolded. Now the thing which eventually tends to happen is this is how the things eventually go along. But one day in the forest he eventually encounters Adaline, and when he encounters Adaline, he comes face to face with her and discusses with her, and eventually Adaline speaks the truth. She tells him that she is Adaline, and she clearly tells him, because of the fact that he is basically someone who belongs to the field of medicine, so she reveals her secret and tells him that like she had to run away. She had no other option because of the fact she never ages, and that is something which she eventually did not want people to figure out, because if they had done that, she would have become an element of curiosity and a subject to the particular people, so that they would always have been wondering and examining her up that what is the thing that is trying to happen with her. Now this is something that eventually makes it even more interesting. In this particular thing, the thing which tends to happen is what, that Adaline then eventually rushes back. She's crying. She's in the same state that she was at that particular time when she had that accident. The trauma eventually was the same, and Adaline takes the car and she just rushes away. His son comes back, and when his son comes back, he inquires from his father what is the thing that eventually tend to happen. His father eventually revealed and told him that she is the one, she is Adaline. And his father asks him only one question: do you love her? He says, I cannot live without her. And when he sees the same amount of intensity and love in his son, he eventually asks him to go and get her. Now his son eventually goes on, and on the way again Adaline comes across a particular accident. Now the accident that tends to happen again is of the same nature. Adaline again falls off, and the thing that tends to happen is what, Adaline's hearts stop beating. The paramedics arrive, each and everything, and this same time they gave her the same electric, current that eventually was there at the time of the thunder that struck her. The same amount is given to her by the paramedics, and eventually Adaline comes to life. When Adaline comes to life, now this is again something which is really a shocker for all the particular people, because the car completely got destroyed, but she's safe. And eventually we see this thing up that Adaline then accepts that she is really in love with that particular guy, then they will go back. Now the thing that unfolds is what, we see this thing up that 1 year has passed, the both of them get married. After the, 1 year, we see this thing up that Adaline is going to a particular party. As Adaline is moving on to a particular party, she notices one thing. She notices a white hair, and from there we come to know that now the story has unfolded that this thing up that now Adaline is going to age. So all in all, if I talk about this particular movie, the movie eventually had a lot to offer. Basically, it's not only science fiction, it had the element of love, emotion attached to it, and something that humans, limitations of humans that was again targeted over here. But the most interesting thing was this thing up that how eventually the role has been justified by the lady itself, and the story was really engaging and quite attaching. So if you guys have not gone for it, I'll prefer this thing up that you guys do go for it. The Age of Adaline, you guys are really gonna love it. This is me, Yusuf, saying goodbye to you people, and before I go on, I want you guys to subscribe to the channel. I want you guys to comment on the videos. I want you to share my videos as much as you guys can, because you guys know one thing up, that all this is all because of you, and I want you guys to shower your support on me. Thank you very much for your time, guys. Take care. Bye.